And so first, let's just think about what a two-dimensional list is. Let's figure out what this thing is. Sorry, nested for loops. That's the first one. Nested for loops. We all know what a for loop is. But a nested loop uses a for loop, but it does something interesting. Let's say we want to write a program that draws a particular pattern. Maybe we want to draw using these asterisks this particular pattern. And maybe we want to do 5 rows of 5 stars. I know that last one looks more like I don't know what that looks like. And we could write this pattern pretty easily in Python. There's actually a really interesting way of doing this in Python. First, if we just want to print what it looks like, so we just type print and we get a single one. Now, Python has the ability to multiply a string by a number, and it just duplicates it. So we could easily write something here using this kind of thing to create our pattern. In fact, we can use a loop to do it. So let's create a new file. And we're done with that one. And we just write a quick for loop, and we're going to use a counting loop because we need the number. And we're going to go, we don't want to start at 0. 0 is not going to print anything. We want to start at 1. And I want to go to 5, which means I have to go all the way to 6, right? Because this last number is not used. And I'm just going to print an asterisk multiplied by n. And what's that going to do? Well, you multiply by n, and this is pattern. Multiply by n is going to do this. So the first time the loop runs, we're going to get a 1. 1 times asterisk is 1 asterisk. The second time, you're going to get a 2. So asterisk times 2, you'll get 2 asterisks. 3, you'll get 3 asterisks, and so on. So if we run this, we get our pattern. Pretty quick, pretty easy to do. Not really that hard in Python because we have this multiplication of a string to called duplicate the string. But what if I wanted to be able to print this pattern multiple times? Maybe 3 times. Well, just duplicate it 3 times, run it, and now we have it 3 times. Great, pretty easy. What if I want to do this 100 times? Do I really want to copy paste this 100 times? I think we can all say no. I don't want to put this in 100 times. It's a lot of unnecessary copying, pasting code. Plus, there's that whole concept of duplicate code. Do we really want to duplicate the code that many times? So the answer to that, of course, is, well, what about a loop? We have a loop, but can we put this inside of a loop? I want to repeat these 2 lines 100 times, or 5 times, or 3 times. So let's actually just write a regular loop for a, I want to do 3. For now, let's just do 3. Right. If I do 3, I'm just going to repeat 3 times. I'm just going to shift that over. So this loop is now in the body of this loop. We call this loop out here outer loop, and we call this loop here an inner loop. The outer loop controls the inner loop. The outer loop is going to run, and then the inner loop is going to run completely before the outer loop moves. And it's going to run these 2 things over and over again until they're both complete. But it's going to run this every time this iterates. So first, this is going to be 0. This is going to run for 0. Then it's going to be 1. This is going to run for 1. This is going to be 2. This is going to run for 2. So now we have the same pattern of me copying it multiple times. So now I can get my 100 without getting a hand cramp or counting. I don't know about you, but it's a little hard to count to 100 when you're copying and pasting. It's printing 100 times now, and it's going to take a while. This is called nesting. We're nesting one loop inside of another loop. So we have this inner loop nested inside of an outer loop. And let me just put this back to 3. It's actually a little excessive to have it at 100. And so let's actually look at the code execution for this. That's not the right key. Let's look at the code execution on this and see what happens, right? And to execute this, we're going to have 2 loops. And I'm just going to write these numbers down here like this instead of a table, because I'm not actually changing anything. I don't really want to put a table in here. I equals 0. That's going to be the first thing. Remember, this range is 0, 1, and 2. This range is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So when I equals 0, n starts at 1, and it's going to print that. Then this goes to 2, because remember, the loop just keeps going, and we're going to print 2. Goes to 3, prints 3 of these. Remember, that times 3. 4, you get 4 of them. 5, we get 5 of them. This inner loop has now ended. Now we go and update, we increment the outer loop. So I now increase to 1. N goes back to 1. We start the inner loop all over from the beginning. We print 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. And now the inner loop is ended again. So the outer loop then increments, and the inner loop goes back to 1, and it does the same thing over again. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it just keeps going. Eventually we hit 5. Eventually we hit 5. The outer loop is done. The inner loop is done. This goes to, technically it goes to 6 and ends, but we'll stop it at 5. This ends, and the whole thing ends. And so it just keeps resetting the inner loop. The inner loop is completely reset and runs every time the outer loop runs one time. And so that's the execution we get on that.